Top 5 takeaways from round 4 of the Rugby World Cup 2023, folks. Some teams are already done in terms of their pool stage games. We still wait for confirmation on the quarterfinal draw, depending on how the results go in this final week of play. But from week 4, what did we see? What was interesting? And as always, you guys can let us know your thoughts. For this one, I have written up a piece for Planet Rugby, so that'll be down in the description. Check that out. It's a home of all rugby news, lineups, and stats and all that kind of good chunky stuff, which you know I love. Down in the description for this one. First one, in no particular order, I'm going to call it the Black Threat. Now, after the All Blacks lost their opening game, and on the back of the fact that in recent years, like the All Blacks have had a few new firsts, right? First ever loss to Ireland is still less than 10 years ago, which doesn't feel kind of right because of the Irish record against the All Blacks recently been pretty good. But it wasn't that long ago the Irish couldn't beat the All Blacks, likewise Argentina. We went into that game against Italy and you're thinking, All Blacks should win it. But you never know, man. Would it be earth-shattering for the Italians to kind of break that duck? Maybe not as much as it would have been, 15 years ago or something. Like, you wouldn't have seen the 2015 side and thought there's a chance they could lose to Italy. But 96-17 is about as emphatic as it could get. I know a lot of fans are saying you can never write off the All Blacks, and I do think, man, the All Blacks on their day are still a side that could beat anybody in the world. Does that mean the All Blacks are going to go ahead and win a World Cup final? No, not yet. But, yeah, maybe the All Blacks are still a pretty good team. It's a little bit of a case of last game itis, you know what I mean? Like, we judge the teams based on their last game. They lost to France. Oh, they're rubbish. Write them off. They beat Italy by 96-17. They're fantastic. Big them up. We've got to kind of be a bit cautious about that. But, Italy didn't win any games in the Six Nations this year, but they weren't getting beaten 96-17. So I still think that's an achievement in itself. For this All Black side, they showed a bit of what they're about. The Italians were poor on the day, so we can't read too much into it. But, yeah, the All Blacks are still a threat. I know there's a lot of eyes on South Africa and on Ireland after their big game in the pool stages as well. But, yeah, the All Blacks are still a threat. As the All Blacks are my team, I'm kind of happy to say that. Second one, I'm going to say, was a bit of a Fijian scare. Now, Fiji have got 1 foot in the quarterfinals. After getting that kind of losing bonus point against Wales and then beating Australia, they certainly put their foot in the door to be favourites for a quarterfinal. All they had to do was go and beat Georgia and beat Portugal, and happy days, hunky-dory, Bob's your uncle, and they'll be through. But Georgia gave them a bit of a scare. There was a fair bit of talk about, man, Fiji's going to go get 2 big bonus point wins, not even going to be a contest. Well, it was a contest, and right down to the wire, Georgia could have done Eddie Jones a massive, massive favour. Sadly for the Georgians, it wasn't to be. Happily for the Fijians, who I feel like are a lot of people's second side, they were able to hold on for a win. This Fijian side is a pretty complete side. They've got some devastating backs, which they've always had, but they've got good set piece. They're great at the breakdown, and they can kick their goals. Goal kicking's been a little bit iffy since Caleb Muntz withdrew from the side prior to the World Cup. But, look at their victory over Australia. It was made on work at the breakdown and kicking goals, not just crazy offloads and Fijian flair. So, yeah, you feel like they kind of need to embrace this mentality of being a great side. Are lacking maybe that little bit of a mental switch that, yeah, we are a favourite. We're going to embrace that, and we are going to put this momentum we've got and, get 2 big wins and steam into a quarterfinal as a genuine contender. They don't need to be scraping through into the quarterfinals because they were nervous about, the possibilities of it. Sometimes that can be the case. When you're about to achieve something great, those nerves kick in. Fiji need to somehow rid themselves of those nerves and embrace being a favourite because they are a bloody good side. Next, I'm going to say Scotland impress because there's been a lot of talk about, well, it's going to be the All Blacks. up against Ireland. South Africa is going to take on France. Scotland are still alive, and they absolutely walloped Romania 84-0, which is the best result of any of the teams who've played Romania. And Scotland did it by resting a bunch of their big guns. A fair few guys were on their World Cup debuts in that game. 84-0. Now, does this mean 84-0 against Romania suddenly means your favourites to beat Ireland? No. No, it does not. They haven't been Ireland since 2017. Scotland still very much go into that final game as underdogs, but we can't write them off. By no means can we. Their fate is still in their own hands. They've got a massive task to try and upset the Irish. There's still possibilities that South Africa, Ireland go through, South Africa, Scotland go through, Scotland, Ireland go through. Did I mention all three? All three can go through. One of them's going to miss out. And if Scotland lose, well, that's them. But if they can get a win, depending on how the other points go and points difference goes, there's still multiple equations at play. But they impressed. So, yeah, nobody can be counting any chickens just yet. Scotland are very much still alive in the race for that quarterfinals berth. Japan click. I say Japan click because they haven't clicked for a while. They've looked underwhelming for quite some time now. Every time we've seen them take on Tier 1 teams, be it when France toured Japan, be it when they played the British and Irish Lions. I mean, they beat Uruguay in a tour a couple of years ago now. Pacific Nations Cup, they were very underwhelming. But maybe, just maybe, at the World Cup, they are finally starting to click at the right time. In every match this World Cup thus far, they've been playing with less ball than their opposition. Japan doesn't usually mind that. They're a team who likes to be fit and able to go the distance and kind of do more with less. And seemingly, they are starting to do more with less. Their run meters per carry, if you'll forgive me for dropping a stat, has improved game on game this World Cup. Their worst one was against Chile, then they improved against England, and then they improved against Samoa. So they have been getting better in their carrying, their offense, game on game. Their handling errors against Samoa was the lowest of all their games in the World Cup thus far. Their first two games, quite high numbers. They've increased their accuracy in that most recent game. Again, I'm hesitant to go too much into that kind of most recent game bias, but there's a few areas where Japan seem to be improving right at the right time with a do-or-die match against Argentina. Whoever wins that one's going to go through. So they even scored a maul try against Samoa. Japan very rarely mauls it, especially against the side that's generally quite a lot heavier than them in Samoa. Samoa has been scoring a lot of maul tries. But, Japan scored a maul try against Samoa. Encouraging. So, does that mean they're the favourites to go and get a quarterfinal berth ahead of Argentina? No, it doesn't. But it's encouraging that they seem to be making some right steps at the right direction at the right time. And the last one we could talk about is the block changes. We talked about it previously about how the Springboks coaches would surely do something a bit left field, and we got it against Tonga. This wasn't Romania they were taking on, and they rung these changes. This was Tonga, who's an underperforming side, but a talented, tough side nonetheless. And the Boks still got the job done, man, despite the fact they had Dion Fourie starting as hooker. And I know he said he trains at hooker with the Boks, but realistically, he's been a loose forward for a number of years. It's his first ever test start at hooker. I think it's the first time he has played with the number 2 jersey on his back at any level since 2018 for Lyon, which is a long, long time ago. It seemed to go all right. Marco van Staden came on as the replacement hooker. It went all right. Dwayne Vermeulen was on the flank. Grant Williams was on the wing. Andre Pollard was coming back for his first game for South Africa in over 12 months and kicked all his goals. The Bok changes. They made a heap of them, and they still managed a pretty emphatic win over Tonga. Was it perfect? No. Did they do enough? Yes. Do a bunch of guys have experience now having played at this World Cup in roles which aren't maybe their core role? Yes, they do. If they're asked to do that, if South Africa make it through to a quarterfinal, if they're asked to perform a role like that in a crunch game against a big team, they've done it before. And you feel that's going to put them in better stead going forward. So, yeah, wasn't the complete article, but I reckon that thinking outside the box tactic from the Bok coaches, it's pretty encouraging for mine. But yeah, there you go. 5 takeaways from round 4 of the Rugby World Cup. You guys let us know your thoughts. Article down in the description for Planet Rugby, as I mentioned. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon.